Wow. I don't think I have enough money for that.
My treat.
When Ice Cream Man melted onto VHS shelves in 1995, critics didn't just ignore it, they laughed at it. Entertainment Weekly wondered if it was a joke. But years later, the bizarre film became a cult favorite for fans who loved their scares served with sprinkles and a little insanity. From brain-filled the main star's creepy past to leaving child actors horrified. These are 20 bizarre facts about Ice Cream Man you didn't know. Stay until the end to discover what disturbing prop the main star stole from the set. Number 1. Actor Clint Howard didn't need method acting to play a disturbing ice cream vendor. He grew up surrounded by Hollywood legends, and horror icons loved him. His brother Ron directed him young, but it was The Exorcist director William Friedkin who personally encouraged him into horror. Friedkin saw something in Howard's face, something unsettling behind the boyish charm. He told him, "You have the look of someone who belongs in nightmares." Years later, Howard would prove him right. By the time Ice Cream Man came around, he'd already appeared in everything from Star Trek to Gentle Ben. But horror felt different. Horror felt like home. This wasn't just a role, it was destiny in a waffle cone. Howard later admitted that Friedkin's words haunted him for years, shaping every horror role he chose. Number 2. The opening asylum scene wasn't a set. It was filmed at a real abandoned mental hospital in Southern California. The producers wanted authenticity, so they rented the crumbling building for 3 nights. What they got was more than they bargained for. Crew members reported hearing doors slam when nobody was inside. Footsteps echoed through empty hallways. One lighting technician swore he saw a figure in a window on a floor they hadn't entered yet. Some refused to go back in after dark. The director loved it. He said the fear was real, so the footage would be too. Suddenly, that "Welcome to Wishing Well" sign hits different, because sometimes the scariest locations aren't built. They're borrowed from the dead. The hospital had closed in 1987 after multiple patient abuse scandals, and local legends claimed it was cursed. Number 3. The child cast, including The Sandlot's Mikey Evans, thought they were making a funny adventure movie. Producers intentionally hid the gore elements from them to get genuine reactions. They were told it was a spooky comedy about ice cream. Nobody mentioned severed heads or brain scoops. So when the first prop appeared on set, a hyper-realistic decapitated head covered in blood and flies, some kids reportedly cried. Others froze. One refused to come out of the makeup trailer for an hour. The director later admitted it was manipulative but effective. Their terror wasn't acting. It was real childhood fear caught on camera. Suddenly, summer break didn't feel so fun. Parents on set were furious, with at least 2 threatening to pull their children from production. The child actors' contracts had to be renegotiated mid-filming to include gore warnings and psychological support. Number 4. Those brain-like scoops weren't CGI. They were frozen oatmeal, gelatin, and fake blood mixed into a paste that could hold its shape. The special effects team spent weeks perfecting the texture. Too smooth and it looked like ice cream. Too lumpy and it looked fake. They needed something that made your stomach turn. According to effects supervisor Tom Savini Jr., they had to dial it down because it looked too real. Test audiences were gagging. Studio executives worried it would get an NC-17 rating, so they softened the color, made it less pink, less wet. What's left on screen is the tame version. Low fat, not a chance. The full-strength brain scoop never made it to theaters. And maybe that's for the best. The effects team reportedly created over 40 different brain batches before settling on the final recipe. Number 5. No stunt driver. Clint drove the ice cream truck himself through every scene. Tight corners, curb hops, alley races, all Howard. He insisted on it. He said driving the truck was part of becoming the character, feeling the wheel, hearing the jingle, owning the space. Producers reportedly hovered near the insurance paperwork at all times. Every sharp turn was a liability. Every near miss with a mailbox was a heart attack for the production manager. But Howard never crashed. He navigated those suburban streets like he'd been doing it for years. Nothing scarier than losing your star and your ice cream truck in the same accident. Thankfully, both survived. Howard had actually worked briefly as a delivery driver in his early 20s, which gave him the confidence to handle the vehicle. The production's insurance company increased their premiums twice during filming after witnessing his driving firsthand. Number 6. The script pulled from real cases. Dean the Candyman Coral, who lured victims with sweets. John Wayne Gacy, who performed as Pogo the Clown at children's parties. Writers leaned into the twisted idea of a friendly neighborhood vendor hiding horrors behind a smile. Sweet treats, sinister motives, horror history meets a sugar cone. The Ice Cream Man wasn't just a random villain, he was a composite of America's worst childhood nightmares made flesh. Suddenly, clowns weren't the only fear. Ice cream trucks with their cheerful jingles and painted cartoons became symbols of predatory charm. The film asked a simple question: what if the man you trusted most was the one you should have run from? The screenwriter had actually interviewed former neighbors of Dean Corll during research, collecting disturbing accounts of how charming he appeared. One interview subject described Corll as the nicest man on the block until he wasn't, a line that made it almost verbatim into the script. Number 7. The film was made for under $2 million, and they stretched every dollar like taffy. Costumes reused from other productions, sets borrowed from TV shows on hiatus, props repurposed from low-budget slashers nobody remembered. Extras were paid in ice cream, literally. The production company bought bulk cones and handed them out instead of cash. Equipment was shared between scenes, lighting rigs held together with duct tape and prayer. The director called it guerrilla filmmaking with a jingle. Others called it chaos, but it worked. Call it the squeeze every scoop budget method, because when you don't have money, you have to have imagination. And Ice Cream Man had both in terrifying abundance. One extra later claimed he worked 3 full days for nothing but 12 ice cream sandwiches and a crew t-shirt. Number 8. Paramount reportedly passed on distribution, calling it too bizarre for mainstream horror. They didn't know how to market it. Was it comedy? Was it slasher? Was it camp? The answer was yes, all of it, and that terrified them. It bounced around indie distributors for months. Some wanted to recut it into straight horror. Others wanted to add a laugh track. Prism Pictures finally bit, agreeing to release it as is, weird tone and all. For a moment, the film nearly never left the freezer. It sat in limbo, too strange for the studios, too cheap for the independents. Turns out one studio's too weird is another studio's cult classic, and sometimes the movies nobody wants become the ones everybody remembers. At least 7 distributors viewed the film before Prism took the risk, with most rejecting it within the first 20 minutes. Number 9. Howard's soft, unsettling cheerfulness, that's him trying to sound kind. The crew kept asking him to be friendlier, and this is where they landed. He wasn't putting on a creepy voice. He was genuinely attempting warmth, and it came out wrong. There's something unnerving about sincerity twisted just slightly off center. His vocal delivery, gentle but hollow, became the film's signature. Test audiences said it made their skin crawl more than the gore, because the voice promised safety, but the eyes promised nothing. Terrifying, unintentionally, and that's the scariest kind. Howard later explained that he modeled his tone after a children's TV host he remembered from childhood, someone who seemed friendly but made him uncomfortable. The director encouraged him to lean into that feeling, to find the wrongness in niceness. Number 10. The movie rented a real vending truck complete with a real vendor who agreed to consult on authenticity. He showed them how to scoop, how to drive, how to interact with kids. Then he saw the murder cone props, brain matter oozing out of waffle cones, severed fingers mixed with sprinkles. He quit on the spot, told the producers, "I sell joy, not this," walked off set and never came back. Imagine losing your job because of a waffle cone full of human bits. The production had to hire someone else, a grip who didn't care what the props looked like. But the original vendor's disgust became a running joke on set. Even the guy who sells ice cream for a living couldn't stomach Ice Cream Man. Number 11. David Naughton, star of An American Werewolf in London, plays a cop. Producers hoped his horror pedigree would reassure fans the movie wasn't just chaos. It was a direct appeal to genre lovers. Naughton brought legitimacy, a link to a film that redefined practical effects and dark humor. His cameo wasn't long, but it mattered. Fans still call it wonderfully random, a wink to horror history buried in a low-budget oddity. He reportedly signed on because he loved the script's absurdity. He said it reminded him of the tonal risks Landis took with Werewolf, dark comedy that doesn't apologize, horror that laughs at itself, and somehow it worked. Naughton filmed all his scenes in just 2 days for scale pay, calling it a favor to the genre. He later joked that his appearance was his way of passing the torch to the next generation of weird horror. Number 12. There was an alternate ending featuring a grotesque ice cream factory transformation sequence. The Ice Cream Man melts into his own product, screaming as his body liquefies into vats of soft serve. The effects were described as too grotesque and psychologically disturbing. It tested so poorly that it was shelved immediately. The audience walked out. Some reported nightmares. The MPAA warned it would trigger an NC-17 rating, and some countries refused to screen it entirely. Germany banned the sequence outright. The UK censored it from home video. A cult movie with a forbidden ending. Only fragments survive in production stills and whispered crew accounts. The director claims a copy exists somewhere, locked away, but he's never shown it. Maybe some things should stay frozen. Number 13. The famous ice cream truck kept breaking down during filming. It overheated under studio lights, leaked fluids onto the pavement, and once, mid-scene, sparked and started smoking. The director yelled cut. The crew grabbed grabbed fire extinguishers, and Clint Howard calmly stepped out holding a prop scoop. They called it the most dangerous vehicle in horror besides Christine. Every scene involving the truck became a gamble. Would it start? Would it stall? Would it explode? Insurance adjusters visited the set twice, but the truck survived, barely, and its constant failures added to the film's chaotic energy. Nothing says low-budget horror like a villain whose getaway vehicle might not make it to the next block. The production eventually hired a full-time mechanic to shadow every scene involving the truck. Number 14, Howard insisted on eating ice cream between takes to stay in character. Crew members say he downed multiple cones an hour: chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, sometimes all three at once. He believed the sugar high kept his energy manic, unpredictable. The director thought he was crazy, but it worked. Howard's performance feels jittery, almost feverish, like someone barely holding it together. That's commitment, and probably a sugar coma. By the end of production, he admitted he couldn't look at ice cream for months. The smell made him nauseous, but on screen, he looks like a man who lives for it. Method acting, one scoop at a time. The craft services department kept a detailed log of his consumption. Howard ate an estimated 247 ice cream servings over the 6-week shoot. His dentist reportedly sent him a warning letter after filming Wrap. Number 15. The severed heads weren't generic. They were cast from the actors' real faces using plaster molds. Each child actor sat still for 30 minutes while crew members covered their heads in alginate. The molds were then filled with foam latex, painted, and detailed with hair, veins, and blood. Some were reportedly so realistic the kid actors refused to look at them. One young actress saw her own decapitated head on a shelf and screamed. She thought it was real for a split second. The props were too convincing. Method horror props. Because nothing says commitment to craft like traumatizing your own cast. The effects team added individual pores, freckles, and even replicated exact hair patterns from the children's heads. One parent threatened legal action after their child had nightmares for weeks. The production had to hire a child psychologist to visit the set and reassure the young actors that the props weren't real, despite looking identical to them. Number 16. The character's uniform borrows heavily from the 1950s chain Good Humor ice cream drivers. Clean white uniform, polite smile, cap tilted just right. It was wholesome Americana. The director said he wanted nostalgia turned rotten. Take something pure and twist it. Make childhood scary again. The uniform became a symbol of false safety. Kids see the white suit and think treats. But in this film, it means danger. Mission accomplished. The Good Humor Company reportedly considered legal action but dropped it. They didn't want to be associated with a horror movie. Smart move. The costume designer studied vintage Good Humor photographs for weeks, deliberately adding subtle wrong details like stains that appeared only under certain lighting. Focus groups in the 1950s had rated Good Humor drivers as more trustworthy than police officers, making them the perfect template for subversion. The director kept a framed Good Humor advertisement from 1952 in his office throughout production, circling the driver's smile with red marker. Number 17. A surreal melting faces dream sequence was filmed and then scrapped. It involved the child characters trapped in an ice cream parlor where the walls drip, the floors melt, and faces dissolve into puddles of color. Test audiences were disturbed, not amused. Some called it unwatchable. The MPAA flagged it immediately. The director fought to keep it, but the studio won. It was cut entirely. Some crews say the footage still exists, locked away in a vault somewhere. Others say it was destroyed. The director refuses to confirm either way. He just smiles and says it's too sticky to watch twice. Maybe some nightmares should stay buried. The sequence took 4 days to film and cost nearly $80,000, making it the most expensive deleted scene in the entire production. One test audience member described it as like watching a childhood memory decompose in real time, which the director took as a compliment. Number 18. Those suburban streets weren't sound stages. They filmed in a real California neighborhood with real residents watching from their porches. Some were curious, some were annoyed, and one homeowner demanded Clint stay off their lawn. To be fair, he was holding a bloody scoop and wearing a stained uniform. The production had to pay fines for street closures. Neighbors complained about the noise, the lights, the fake blood staining the sidewalk, but the location worked. It felt real because it was real. No Hollywood backlot could replicate that lived-in, slightly worn suburbia. And the residents, they got paid. In ice cream, of course. The neighborhood association held 3 emergency meetings to discuss the production, with one resident circulating a petition to ban all future filming. Property values in the area temporarily dropped after the film's release when curious fans started visiting the location. One homeowner whose house appeared prominently in the background later painted their entire exterior a different color to avoid recognition. Number 19. A fan-made Ice Cream Man PC game appeared in the 2000s. Retro graphics, ice cream weapons, the whole scoop. Players controlled the Ice Cream Man, hunting victims through a pixelated neighborhood. It was crude, violent, and deeply strange. Clint reportedly said it felt like an honor and a warning. The game never got an official release, but it circulated on message boards and early file sharing sites. Some fans still play it today. It's become part of the film's legacy, a digital echo of a movie that refused to die. And in a way, it's perfect, because Ice Cream Man was always about taking something innocent and making it dangerous, even in 8-bit. The game's creator, who remained anonymous, later revealed they made it as a high school project and never expected it to spread beyond their friend group. Number 20. Who wants sprinkles? Pure Clint Howard. It wasn't in the script, he said it during a take, smiled, and the crew laughed until they realized how haunting it sounded. The director kept it. It became the film's unofficial tagline, a childhood phrase turned threat. Innocent words delivered with just enough wrongness to make them terrifying. That's the magic of Ice Cream Man. It takes the familiar and twists it, and sometimes the best horror isn't written, it's improvised. One line, one smile, one scoop at a time. Howard later revealed he was actually asking the child actors a genuine question between takes, forgetting the cameras were rolling. The director noticed the kids' uncomfortable reactions and immediately called for the footage to be saved. That single improvised line has been sampled in over a dozen horror movie trailers and remixes, becoming more famous than most of the scripted dialogue. Bonus fact, Clint Howard kept the real prop ice cream scoop after filming, the one covered in fake blood, the one that appeared in the most disturbing scenes. He once joked he still serves justice with it. Fans have begged him to bring it to conventions, but he claims it's safely stored until needed again. Some believe he's joking, others aren't so sure, because if there's one thing Ice Cream Man taught us, it's that the line between comedy and horror is thinner than soft serve. And Clint Howard knows exactly where that line is. Sleep tight. Nearly 3 decades later, Ice Cream Man stands as a cult classic carved from nostalgia, nightmare fuel, and Clint Howard's frozen smile insanity. It wasn't a hit, it wasn't beloved, but it survived, and in the process, it became something more than a movie. From real asylums to banned endings, from child actors traumatized by their own prop heads to a vendor who quit rather than serve gore, this film was chaos from the first scoop to the last. But it was also fearless. It didn't apologize. It didn't compromise. Which fact chilled you the most? And what bizarre movie should we dive into next?